はいさい、レッツゴー沖縄、ンチョール、グスヨ、初めてやさい、西原からチャービタル、ユージ、コータロシ、イヤビン、ミシチョティウタビミソリ。I study at University of Hawaii at Hilo about indigenous language and culture revitalization. Itasarugutu nigesabila.
タバグシチャとビセムトブのマが、ハワイチナンチュ4世、和田エリック・ディチョイビン、イタサルグトゥニゲサビラ。ワイヤ生不関心株団 NPO の、コーダイレクターとコーファウンダー、小学校、ハワイの小学校でHawaiian Studies とハワイ言葉、ハワイ歴史、レナサンスのものも一応教えてます。
What brought you to Hawaii?
My great-great-grandparents from my mother's side, which is Agun or Ahagon, Kaneguskuson, now part of Itoman City. Great-great-grandparents immigrated to Hawaii in 1906, but their first son, Tachonan, was already born in Uchinaaguchi, but he couldn't go to Hawaii with the parents, so he had to stay in Ahagon with other relatives. So that's how I have many relatives in Hawaii. Whoever is under my great-grandfather is born and raised in Okinawa. Then my uncle, who is my mother's oldest brother, was kind of like adopted to one of the Nisei, the second generation uncle and auntie. So that's how our family connection got strengthened. My mom's oldest brother, he was already born in Okinawa, but when he was 6, he was brought to Hawaii. So even though they are siblings, the uncle forgot how to speak Japanese and Uchinaaguchi, only speak English, the Hawaii local English. Then rest of the siblings, including my mom, they are all born and raised in Okinawa and only speak Uchinaaguchi. But we still maintain the family connection. Then my mom told me to go to Hawaii, so I was like, oh sure, sounds good. My family chose for me to do a study abroad in Hawaii, Hilo.
You went there from your undergraduate course?
I started from English program under the community college. Right after I graduated from Futenma High School, I moved to Hilo and did a English program for half an year. Then moved to community college, the Tandai, did the liberal arts studies 2 years. Then transferred to University of Hawaii at Hilo. Then I finished the BA in linguistics. So first I started from English course, just ESL classes.
So how did you two meet?
Like I said, I went to Hawaii only because of family connection. It's not like I wanted to study in Hawaii or I wanted to study abroad. But it sounds cool, right? You know, living in Hawaii, it sounds like a dream. So it sounded fun. So I went there, but I cannot just live and have fun because I agreed to go to Hawaii for family connection. Then one of our third generation auntie invited me to go to Kenjinkai related events. Then one of them was his monthly Ryukyu Uchina study workshop. That's where I was introduced to Eric Shinshi. So like I said, I didn't even care about Okinawan Ryukyu things, but I had to go because my auntie invited me to come.
What do you specifically teach about?
We actually started with performing arts, Geino, but when we were doing the performances, we saw that a lot of the people even in Hawaii didn't really understand what the performance is about, or they don't know the language. So they couldn't enjoy or understand it more, especially koteng or classical. So we decided to start workshops to teach and then also to share what we learned when we came to Okinawa, from talking with the elders and our relatives. It was in Honolulu only, and then we were asked to go to Maui and to Hilo. So we started the workshop in Hilo, and we teach about, or we talk about a lot of things, but because also in Hawaii, it's part of the law or constitution in Hawaii that all students in public school have to have Hawaiian studies at least 1 hour a week. So from learning those things, we kind of looked at difference in a lot of things as far as for Okinawa people in Okinawa, also in Hawaii, they don't learn about Okinawa things, like how Hawaiians learn about Hawaii things. So we started to look at that, and then also from being involved with revitalization movement, or also the 100th anniversary of overthrow of Hawaii, and listening to very powerful speeches like from Haunani Trask about not being American, and also about colonialism and about how things were taken away and discrimination. We decided to kind of connect those things and present Okinawan things by looking at the kinds of history that we have that's very similar to Hawaii, so that it's easier for people to understand that way. But it was still hard to do, but you have to start, I guess, from someplace at the beginning. Right. And as people get used to it and they understand, because not much understanding of colonialism or about occupation, those kinds of things, or assimilation. But now I think more people understand. So those are the kinds of things, especially history is important. So it helps to foster understanding and connection with other places that went through the same thing, especially other indigenous communities.
Why do you think Hawaii can try to preserve their own culture, but not Okinawa? Only my opinion probably, but in Okinawa
it's harder. We have many theories or answers to that.
Right.
I think one thing that Okinawa really has to look at first is looking at the similarities of what happened in other, especially other island communities or island states that were colonized. The problems are all the same. But in Okinawa, I don't think they connect it or they recognize it as such things like the education, how Okinawa is ranked in education, the divorce rates, the single parent families, the dropout rates for school, the poverty rate. It's same in Hawaii. It's same in many other places with the Native Americans, with Aotearoa, with the Maori. And I think if they can understand that, it helps to really see the problem and where it comes from, that we have a dominant country, and in Okinawa's case, it's two dominant countries that are occupying and controlling Okinawa, and really Okinawa doesn't have a voice. No democracy. It comes under also a veil, or the dominant countries try to make the native people believe that they're protecting them, or that they're there to help. But I think a big example is if we look at what happened in World War II, where they were promised to be protected, and but look at what happened to Okinawa, and it's still the same with everything. Okinawa people try to save their ocean, try to save their land, and every time they say no to Japanese government punish. It's looking at those kinds of things, I think, that's really hard for Okinawa people, because it stems from Satsuma time, from 1609, when Jana Uekata, they cut his head off because he didn't want to sign, to make an example to Okinawa people that if you don't listen to us, this is what's going to happen. Then 60 years after, they did that to another Uekata. They killed him to remind the people, even after 60 years, this is what's going to happen. We're still in control. And I think those kinds of things still happen today. Japan still gives Okinawa those kinds of reminders through punishment, that you're still going to listen to us and you better listen, you better do what we say. So I think Okinawa people still have that kind of generational, historical, and cultural trauma, which is really similar to many, many other indigenous communities. Yeah.
Indigenous pride is very big because that's the driving force to do such things. And for us, Ryukyuans, we tried very hard assimilating into Japanese ways in order to survive. So we cannot criticize what our ancestors did because they had to survive and pass down life to us, our generation. So, and also there was a battle of Okinawa. People have experienced or saw Uchinaaguchi getting killed by Japanese soldiers for speaking Uchinaaguchi because speaking language other than Japanese made them spies from the Japanese military perspective. So being proud Uchinaaguchi was not a good thing for us in the past. That's why people chose to become Japanese in order to just to survive. Also, Japan and Ryukyu Islands are neighbors. Whether there is colonial relationship or not, we are still neighbors. So we kind of look alike. Versus in Hawaii, brown skin Hawaiian people and white Americans, there's no way confusing them as the same ethnic group. There's no way. So I think it has to do with that. We are kind of similar. That's why we could kind of say like Uchinaaguchi wa koime no Japanese みたいな darker Japanese. You could kind of say that compared to the relationship between Hawaii and America. That is very huge. And like Eric Shinshi said, we are dealing with two different colonizers, naming Japan and America. They shook their hands behind our back. That's what happened in 1972, the Hondo Fukki. Our people wanted a peaceful life without military threat, and we wanted the peace constitution and economic growth that Japan was enjoying back then. So those are the things our people went for, the reversion, the Hondo Fukki, and none of them came true. Then Japan and America, they were the enemies until the World War II. They shook their hands so that they could use our islands for military fortress forever. So our people got tricked to believe that by becoming Japanese, we will be okay or we will be successful, we will be happy. And many people had to believe that so that they could survive and move on from the aftermath of the Battle of Okinawa.
My language is much more prosperous than Uchinaaguchi or the other Shimakutuba, right?
I think one of the big things though that is a difference or that helps Hawaii is the international and the domestic laws that has to be followed in so-called United States, although I don't think of Hawaii as part of United States. There's laws to protect indigenous people in the United States as to where there's no such thing in Japan. And so they have to follow these laws. And the Hawaiian people, when they started the language revitalization in the 1970s, it was still against the law to use Hawaiian language in the public schools until 1985. So just recently. But they went against the law. And they didn't care because they knew that if they didn't do something, they only had 3,000 native speakers left. And if they didn't do something, that the language would be lost. In Okinawa, I think kyoiku, you don't have such laws to protect indigenous language or indigenous culture. And then for the kyoiku, because it's controlled by the central government, there's no room to expand language. Now you have some schools like in Koza and some other places that have Uchinaaguchi or Shimakutuba, but it's still not enough because the Hawaiians looked at how the Maori were doing it and saw that it has to continue within the three generations living in the house, the grandparents, parents, and the child. If you don't have that, the language is not going to live. So when they saw that, they created that kind of system to teach the small children from the time that they're born to grow up with the language. But here in Okinawa and even in the diaspora, there's not the urgency to do the language because you still have many of the elders speaking the language. So they don't think it's like a danger yet, or also they don't have the idea that it's important that, we need Japanese because that's going to help us get a good job or good education or, those. And it was the same thing in Hawaii too, because when I started college in the 80s, I wanted to take Hawaiian language, but I was told, don't take Hawaiian language because it's not going to help you with anything. But now the Hawaiians have created jobs to use the Hawaiian language. They've created, even within the university, in the school system, where you can go from preschool all the way up to PhD, all in Hawaiian language. And so, but in Okinawa, it's still hard because of, again, the historical and generational trauma, how people view themselves. Uchinaaguchi, I think, are proud of their identity, but I think it's still the trauma, or there's still maybe shame that their language is not at the same level as Japanese. Because in Hawaii, when you go into a hotel or any place like that, you always hear the greetings all in Hawaiian. But we go to places in Okinawa and we don't hear it. It's all in Japanese.
Right.
No matter what hotel you go into, they don't use Okinawa language, which is really sad. So I think those are some of the big differences, especially between the Hawaiian language movement and what's in Okinawa, where I see it from person born and raised in Hawaii as there's no freedom of Okinawa people in Okinawa to do those things.
ウニゲーサビラ